We're gonna be going over how to use the main drawing tools in Medibang Paint, a free app. The first and most basic tool is called the pen tool. To access the main features of the pen tool, click on the palette. There you have access to many different pens. If you want to add a pen, you can use standard pens right here. But if you made a free account, you get access to all the cloud brushes. First, there's a pencil, it's basic. There's also the pen, also basic. Next is the sharp pen. Same thing as pen, but has a curve after you draw. There's a G pen, which is very textured like a crayon. The mapping pen has a similar texture to the Z pen and Sumi. Edge pen is pretty confusing if you don't know how to use it, but it's a pen that has edges inside. Then you can use the fill tool and select your color to fill in the edge pen. The stipple pen, very stipply. You can edit the size of the pens to make them bigger. So I'm going to reset my canvas and move on to something else. Add a color later and delete your first later. Let's go over the watercolors. You can change the opacity of your pen to make it more transparent. The watercolor doesn't look very different if you make it small. Or you have a high opacity. But at the tip, you can actually see the ending point. Next is the wet watercolor. There's an easier difference on what it looks like. There's the acrylic brush, has a texture that makes it look like a paintbrush. The airbrush, pretty obvious, is a semi-transparent brush used for highlights. There's the blur, which blurs out certain objects in the painting. Smudge smudges your artwork. Sparkle brush makes stars. You have some of the cloud brushes that you can get. Vegetation symmetry brush. Checkered. Pixel. And thin smudge, which is exactly the same as smudge, but thinner. Then we have the shapes tools. But first is a square. It makes a square. The circle, it makes a spear shape. The pentagon, which you can set a custom shape. Then we have the curve pen. You can set it, it's exactly like the polygon tool, but it has curves. We have the cross tool, similar to the polygon tool, and the curve tool, but it makes sharp edges. And the standard line tool, which the name is self-explanatory, it makes lines. Checking it off as recording. Then we have the filling shape tool. Exactly like the shape tool, but instead of just making shapes, it automatically fills them in. So square tool will make a square, but automatically fills it in. Same with the round shape and the polygon. Fill tool is obvious, as what it does is allows you to fill in certain creations, and actually corresponds with what brush you're using. So with the pen, the standard, and with the wet watercolor, you kind of notice some difference. An obvious difference could be with the airbrush. Actually, some brushes don't work as well. You can choose to expand your fillings, and make them larger. Because if you don't, there might be some extra white spaces left in them. There's a gradient tool, which is very confusing if you don't know what to do. But what it does is that when you go through the board of your painting, it will add a shade to it. There's this one, which has your standard part, where your color corresponds with your secondary color, which you switch in between. And there's this, where your color mixes with the transparent layer. And there's a circle tool for it, to have like an effect of a sun. Next, there's a selection tool. I'll go over that later in the next video. Magic wand tool, it will be going over in the selection tool video. Next, there's the drawing pen tool. This selects the things that you want to select. I'll go over that in selection video if you want to know more about it. There's the layers. That'll be video. The blending will also be going over in the layers episode. All this will be going over later. You can rotate your picture. You can zoom in and out for transform your layer. You can settings for the canvas. You can save, export your pictures. Settings, help, and sync. That's it for this video.